I've been a nerd my whole life. I just love everything technical. So, as I said, my name is Jonathan Rogers. Social stuff's down at the bottom. If you think the talk sucks, hit me up. Tell me it sucked. If you think the talk was great, you probably won't, but just hit me up. Tell me what you think. So, as we said, the title of the talk today is Who's Been Stealing All the Cookies from the Cookie Jar? And I know I just lost the slide. I'm right back. Sorry about that. And really, where this talk came out of for me is as a defender, my boss asked me one day, what types of attacks are you worried about? What things should we really make sure that we can defend against? And I was reading a lot of different articles and I was doing a lot of research. And I started reading about cookie stealing and some of the things that were out there. And I began to wonder if an attacker targeted our organization in this way and they try to steal cookies, would we be able to defend against it? So this talk is really an outworking of all this research and things I've done to try to make sure that our company was ready for these types of attacks. So if we're going to talk about stealing cookies, the first thing we really need to talk about is the question of what is a cookie? Because most of us, when I say cookies, most of us are familiar with at least some cookies. We're familiar with chocolate chip cookies. Some of us have love affairs and illicit affairs in the beginning of the year with Girl Scout cookies. And everybody knows Milk's favorite cookie, Oreos. But what about internet cookies? What about browser cookies? What normally are we talking about when we talk about cookies and the internet? Well, the easiest way I can phrase it, and I think the easiest way for me to have to think about it, is cookies are a way for websites to remember who you are. There's a lot of different kinds of cookies, and it's really outside of the scope of this talk to talk about all the different kinds of cookies there are. But prevalently, one of the biggest types of cookies that we deal with as cybersecurity defenders are session cookies. These are the cookies that hold all our login data. And when we go to a website and we're already authenticated, and we can get in and we don't have to log in the next time we go to the website. That's our session cookie that lets us do that. So the question is, when it comes to these internet cookies, these ways that websites remember who we are, why would an attacker want to steal our cookies? Why would that be a lucrative target for an attacker? Well, I think there's a couple different reasons for that. Number one, attackers, if they're able to steal our session cookies, if they're able to get a hold of that and replay that, what can they do? Well, they can appear to be someone they're not. They can appear to be maybe our CEO of the company, maybe just, a regular user, or maybe they can, even if they're so lucky, maybe they can pretend to be you. So by stealing cookies, an attacker can pretend to be somebody they're not. They can look legitimate, and it gives this attacker this easy door to walk through and say, hey, I'm supposed to be here, don't pay attention to me. Number two, why do attackers target cookies? Well, like a lot of things, if an attacker is able to steal cookies, they can bypass security controls. Now, when it comes to defense, what security control have a lot of defenders, and maybe some of us, touted as a magic answer? It's the savior of security. This is the one control that will make everything safe, and it will make our jobs easier, and we won't have to worry about the bad guys ever again because of this control. We all know it. It's multi-factor authentication. Everybody and their brother for a lot of years have said, oh, if you enable MFA, you're good, you're golden. But if an attacker is able to get a hold of a session cookie, it has been proven, we see it all the time in the news now, and attacker can and will bypass security controls, including MFA. Now, let me just add a side note there for the people in the back. If anyone tells you that any security control, I don't care what it is, if they tell you any security control is a magic answer, is a silver bullet, and will solve all your problems, they're either A, trying to sell you something, or B, they're on LSD and they need some help. But has MFA really been hyped up as this thing that is going to save the world? Yes, it has, but I'm the kind of person, I don't like you just to take my word for something. I like to give some evidence. Let's let's look at an article together that Microsoft still has on their website. The article is called "One Simple Action You Can Take to Prevent 99% of Attacks on Your Accounts." And this is what Microsoft says in that article. This is a screenshot from that article I took this morning. It says MFA can block over 99.9% of account compromise attacks. So Microsoft even tells us MFA is this super magic thing that's going to save the day. It's going to keep your account safe. You won't have any worries if you turn on MFA. Now, at the risk of sounding like a total nihilist, let me say, I know MFA is a great security control. It should be enabled for every account a person has. It is a fantastic security control, and it can prevent a lot of attacks. But we need to be very careful. Again, we need to be very careful about touting anything as this magic security control that is going to just alleviate every security problem we have. And it's going to keep the attackers at bay. It's going to tuck us in at night, and it's going to give us the warm fuzzies. We need to be very careful about that, because if we're not careful, we can romanticize any security control. Now, here's the thing about cookie theft and cookie stealing. Cookie stealing isn't something that's come around recently. It's something that's been around for a long time and taken a lot of different forms over the years. You can go back to the olden days when there were things like fire sheet where people would steal cookies. There's been pass the cookie attacks. There's even cross-site scripting. There's some ways to steal cookies through that. So through the years, there's been a lot of different ways people have sought and have stolen cookies and been able to hijack identities that way and bypass security controls. But now that we're in 2023, what does cookie stealing look like? How do attackers, and the real question is, do attackers still try to steal cookies in 2023? Well, of course they do. Or else I wouldn't be doing this talk. But how do attackers try to steal cookies? What methods do they use to steal? What is one of the larger methods? Now, if I had more time, I would talk about some of the popular methods we see, but I really want to talk and mention one really popular way that attackers use to hijack cookies and bypass security controls. It's been in the news a lot. There's a lot of information out there about it. And this method is called adversary in the middle. Now, adversary in the middle is a really interesting attack technique. What an attacker will do is they will send a phishing email, as attackers often do. And this phishing email will have a fake login page that looks like this. Looks, kind of legitimate. And so what will happen is you go to that fake login page, you put your credentials in, but instead of the normal, most of the time when an attacker has a fake login page, what those login pages do, is they just are seeking to harvest our credential, harvest our password, then we're good to go. So with adversary in the middle, this attack is a little different because the way it takes form is I go in, I put my email address in, I put my password in, and then the website will walk me through and ask me to complete MFA challenge. I do that. And then if the attacker's any good, they will redirect me to the legitimate website I'm trying to log into, and it'll seem as everything's right in the world. But what's actually happened is I've put in my credential, as I've verified through MFA, verified my identities through MFA. What has happened is the attacker in the background has stolen my session cookie. They can then, because these adversary in the middle kits work as a proxy in the background, they can then take that cookie, replay it, and as we've already talked, they can log in as me or whoever's logging in and do whatever they want to do. This is something that we should definitely be concerned about. Because, as we know, phishing is still one of the number one ways attackers come after any organization. So we need to be very aware of this attack technique and how attackers use it. We also need to be aware of the tools that attackers use to pull off these techniques. There's 3 adversary in the middle phishing kits that you can get on GitHub and look at right now. The first one's pretty popular. You've probably heard of it. It's called Evil Engine X2. The second one is Muraena, and the third is Multishka. I probably butchered all those names. I apologize. But all 3 of these adversary in the middle phishing kits are super popular, and they are super easy to set up and spin up in a cloud environment. And then before you know it, you have a fake landing page, a fake login page that you can direct people to. They can go there and log in, and you can steal their cookies successfully and harvest their login, their credentials. Now, I've talked a lot about and kind of speed ran through what this attack looks like and how it takes form. But because all of us here today are concerned with defending our organization, one of the things I really want to talk about is how do we defend against this? How do we try to keep our organization safe? Because that's my concern as a defender, and that's your concern also, is how do we protect our organizations? How do we keep ourselves and our people safe from this kind of attack? Well, number one advice I would give you, the number one thing I've tried to do at my organization is alert on anomalies. Look for things that look out of the ordinary. Now, if you've been in cybersecurity and defense for more than 5 minutes, what you quickly realize is every environment is weird. Every environment has strange things going on. Every environment has just things that you shake your head and you go, okay, whatever. But as a defender, what it is our jobs to do, it is our job to learn what is weird for our organization. And then it's to begin to baseline the weirdness in our organization, to understand it, and then to look for the things that are abnormal weird, if I can use that term. Look for the things that are like, yeah, that should never happen. Oh, this user's logging in, but they're logging in from Ethiopia? Yeah, that shouldn't happen. Look for IP addresses that stick out. Look for things that are just different, that are anomalous. Now, if you're using Office 365 as your identity provider, and you have Azure AD, P2 licensing, or I think it's E5 as your licensing in Microsoft, you can use what's called Defender for Identity, or Defender for Identity. Sorry, I screwed that thing up pretty bad. But what this allows you to do, it allows you to alert on different risky actions for a user's login. One of the things you can alert on is you can alert on if a token just appears weird. If a token looks like it has been hijacked or replayed, you can alert on that and find out, hey, there's something weird going on with this user. The token doesn't look right. This login is from a new place. And that's definitely the first place we have to start at, is getting our alerting right. Because, if you talk to the vendors are going to say, oh, you don't have to do anything. This baby runs perfect right out of the box. But again, most of us that have been doing this longer than a couple of minutes know nothing's perfect out of the box. And even things that you tune and you tune and you tune still have trouble sometimes. So it's our job as a defender to get the alerting right, look for the things that are bad and wrong, and try to catch them before the bad guys get in. Number 2 piece of advice I give you to protect against adversary in the middle attacks is to leverage conditional access policies. If you're using Azure AD P1 licensing and Office 365, one of the great things you can do with conditional access policies is you can say, if a user tries to log in and they are not on a compliant device, If they are not on a device that is joined to Azure AD, don't let them log in. That's super powerful because in the cases we were talking about, where an attacker has stolen a cookie through an adversary in the middle, they're now going to try to replay that cookie. That's going to be on a device that is not compliant. That's going to be on a device that is not Azure AD joined to our tenant. So when they try to get in, conditional access is going to say, no, I'm not, that token is not good. It's going to revoke the access for that user. So conditional access is a really powerful way where you can leverage things for your good. Because I know the temptation a lot of the time for a lot of people, myself included, is let's turn on security defaults in Office 365. Let's let that run. Let's not worry about conditional access because, again, you have to tune it and you have to get it right, or you're going to have gaps and things are going to get a little screwy. But if we use conditional access policies in Office 365 as a tool like it is, we can do some powerful things that they won't be a magic answer. They won't be a silver bullet, but they're going to give us an advantage. They're going to help us and protect us in ways that we weren't initially protected. The third piece of the device, and as I said earlier, I do a lot of user awareness training in my day job. The third piece of the advice I would give you is train yourself and train your users. One of the things, even as a defender, that I spend a good amount of time doing is I try to spin up adversary middle phishing kits. I put these fake landing pages up and try to see what's it look like, how does it respond, how does this appear in my web browser once I've set it up. I do those things to train myself so I understand how these attacks work. And then once I understand how the attacks work, the great thing I can then do is to train my end users. Because a lot of times, if we're not careful, we can have the attitude, well, our end users are just terrible and, they're never going to catch this stuff. But there are a lot of end users that if we equip them and we teach them what to look for in these cases and how to detect some of these phishing kits, they're going to keep an eye out for it. And will everybody? No, there's always going to be some people who just click links, and that's a totally different problem. But there are people out there in our organizations that we can leverage as resources to help defend our organization, be on the lookout for these things. And so we train ourselves, we train our end users, and especially with adversary in the middle kits, when often what will happen with an adversary in the middle kit, when you go to log in, you're on this proxy page, it'll act like a lot of websites do. A login window from Microsoft or Google or Okta will pop up and say, log in here. But when you research these phishing kits and understand them, one of the things you'll realize about them is normally with a pop-up window from a website to log into Microsoft or whatever IDP you're using, you can resize that window. You can move that window. In an adversary in the middle phishing kit, you can't do that. And so one of the great things you can do is train users, hey, if you can't move this window, something's not right. Something else you can train yourself and users on is if you're using SSO for a lot of your applications, using single sign-on for a lot of your applications, and a user tries to go to a web page that they should just be able to log into it, take the token and get them there, but all of a sudden it's asking to re-verify, that should throw blazing red flags up in their head to say, yeah, something's not right, because usually it just logs me in, but all of a sudden this one page, no other page, but this one page is wanting me to log in. And we should teach our users those things and those tips and tricks, because again, maybe not every user, but we can get a lot of our users on board with us to help us look for the things that are going on that are malicious. Now, try to keep my remarks on things to do in response to protect against adversary in the middle attacks short, because I didn't want to drag super long in this or have too much to present. But really, one of the best pieces of advice I can give anyone when you think you're dealing with this kind of attack, and really any kind of hijacking attack in Office 365 or whatever identity provider you may be using, is if you think an account's under attack, kill the sessions with fire. revoke the sessions, blow them out of the sky. The user's got to log back in. It's going to take a few minutes maybe, but if there is something going on, you can get that out of there pretty quickly. But when you're sure, hey, there's something weird going on and we need to stop this out of this clouded account, this is a way to get them out quickly. Now, one of the last things I want to talk about and really hit hard on too is, I know there's a cost with this and you can't do it for every account, but one of the things we can also do to help protect our organization, protect our companies against adversary in the middle attacks is to use phishing-resistant MFA, specifically use things like certificate-based MFA, to use hardware tokens like a YubiKey. If we use those things, that's going to give us a layer of security to help protect against these phishing attacks, against these adversary in the middle attacks. And as I said, for a lot of accounts, we may not be able to use things like YubiKeys, but especially for administrator accounts. I mean, YubiKeys are what, $20-25 a pop? If you've got 3 or 4 people that are global administrators in your Office 365 account, that's a small price to pay to protect your high-level administrators against these kind of attacks. Now, I know we're getting close to the half-hour mark, so I want to hurry in case we've got any questions. But the one thing I do want to recognize is there are a lot of great resources out there about adversary in the middle attacks, about, like I said, this talk probably wasn't the greatest, but there are 3 specifically that are just fantastic. The first one is Teardown from Microsoft on a adversary in the middle campaign. This is a really good walkthrough on what an adversary in the middle campaign looks like and how they detected it, how they mitigated it. Read that article. That's really great. The slides will go from Discord, and that that link will be there. The second article from Jeffrey Peel is really good. He walks through what you can do in Office 365, some of the things I've talked about, a lot of the things I've talked about, and how you can protect your environment from adversary in the middle attacks. He even walks through the MFA methods and if they're protected against adversary in the middle attacks. And there's a lot of things we had. Really good article. Get that, read that, use those as sources for your company.
There's a few questions in the Zoom Q&A. I don't know if you want me to just read.
Yeah, you want to hit them?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
In the scenario where session cookies can be leveraged, are they leveraged for bypassing MFA?
Oh, yeah. If you in adversary in the middle attacks and other pass the cookie attacks where cookies are stolen, we've definitely seen throughout the industry, and this is reported by Paul Otto, Microsoft's threat response team, Google's threat response team, that we have seen adversaries be able to bypass the MFA, get into environments by replaying the session cookie.
Is there an alternative to cookies that helps address privacy concerns?
Yes, but we're at the mercy of people who write code. So that's the thing. Like I tell people at my org all the time, I don't write the code. I just pay Microsoft or whoever money for it and deal with the crappiness it may have. So yes, there may be better ways to do certain things, but we're at the mercy of the people who write the applications. So if you're writing your own things, cool. Yeah, there are different ways you can do it, but we're kind of at the mercy of standards on this one.
Thank you for coming. It was a pleasure to listen to you talk about cookies today.